company for a while now. We've worked with her for on a number of different sort of projects, and it is probably very much in keeping with how we're looking in the current climate. And I know certainly from a lot of discussions that I've had with clients, this work-life balance is going to be very, very important. Again, Judith won't have all of the answers, but certainly over the next 30 to 40 minutes, the idea is to get you thinking. Slides will be made available at the end, and Judith will give you various details of if you want further information as to how she may be able to help with you. We've been on lockdown now since just before the lockdown was announced. So I think we enter week 12 before I was actually with any of my colleagues. If you press the next one, Jonathan, please. That was our office, and it seems like it's in the dim and distant past with my other directors. And there's Ben Houchin in the middle of all this, who's the local mayor. We are looking to ease back into a working environment, possibly in a 2 weeks' time on a limited basis. So I think a change of face and getting back to that office will be quite useful. But without further ado, I'll hand you over to Judith. Please, as I say, if you have any questions, post those to Judith. We might not be able to answer them specifically after today, but either my team, myself, or Judith will then get back to you. So sorry that you won't be able to see Judith, but at least you'll be able to talk passionately about life after lockdown and go through the presentation with you. So over to you, Judith.
Thank you, Graham, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm really sorry I can't see your smiling faces, and all that effort of doing my hair and trying to look presentable has sort of gone to waste. But there you go. We're learning as we go, as Graham said. So hopefully you can hear me, and I will share slides with you. As Graham said, I've worked with Prismatic in partnership because I look at the non-financial side of life planning. So really everything but the money side, but it's important that you can cost your plans and know it's feasible. So I typically work with people at midlife or beyond that, trying to find a new way of being. And that may be that people are looking for a new job role or career or a new challenge, so sort of reinventing yourself and doing something different. Or it might be that you're beginning to think about retirement and what that really means. Or it might be that you've already in retirement and thinking this isn't quite what I thought it would be. So normally, I guess there are quite personal triggers for people wanting to make those changes in their life. Maybe it's because you've reached a particular age and you feel like you need to do something different. Or it might be that the children have left home, that your business is up for sale, that you've decided that it's time for a change. But today, I guess it's a little bit different because we've all come together in quite unusual circumstances, because the current situation has perhaps triggered you into thinking about what's next for you. So COVID-19, I think, has been a bit of a trigger to reflect for most of us. It's brought about all sorts of changes in our way of life. We're all having different journeys, but I don't think any of us could have foreseen the changes 12 months ago that we're experiencing now. So you've probably all realised how fast your hair grows, and so I've struggled to get mine looking anywhere near decent for today. And we've become best friends with our computer screens. So it's definitely time to clean the screen and get the dust off and make friends. And I think we're in week 12 now. So there's some easing and a sense that things are moving again. So for a number of reasons, I think it really is a good time to think about how you want your future to be. And first of all, for many of us, our future is going to be different because what we thought was ahead of us is now looking quite different. It might be that your job role has changed. It might be that it's disappeared altogether. Your business might be one of those that's absolutely thriving in different ways, or you might be struggling. It might be that you were already retired or have plans for retirement and they seem to have stalled at the first hurdle because they're just no longer feasible. And secondly, I think this has been a time when we've all had an insight into how life could be different. So you've had a taste of working from home, working differently, working more flexibly. Life has probably slowed down a little bit. So more time to just be and enjoy your home, to think about relationships and how you relate differently to the people around you and the people that you care for. Probably even a change in your financial situation. And I'm not going to go into investments, that's Graham's job. But thinking about what we really need to live off, what sort of stuff we really need to buy. So an insight into what's really important in life, what things are you really missing, and what stuff actually do you think you might be able to do without or do differently. And then I guess as we've gone through that change, the other thing that's happened is that you've probably learned a bit about yourself. We've all spent more time in our own company and had to perhaps face a few demons or accept things about ourselves that we knew but we've just avoided by being really busy all the time. So as you've got to know yourself, and I'll come back to this later, is think about what you enjoy and what you really get a sense of purpose from. So finally, I guess that the almost sad part about the current situation is that it has made most of us, I think, value life and realise that it's not a dress rehearsal. We hope for a long life, but we really don't know what's around the corner. So why would we put off what we really want to do? So if life feels a little bit more precious at this time, it really is a good time to reflect and explore your options. So today I promised to share some practical tips, 3 steps for how to move forward. But there are 2 big questions I want to deal with first of all, and this is the first one. So what's it all about? What is life all about? And what, the big scale of things, what do we actually all want from our life going forward? Well, when I've asked the question of clients and a lot of the research that I read about what makes for a healthy later life, the same themes keep coming up, and they're generally something like this. So generally people say, well, I'd like a long life. I'm not planning to die anytime soon. But long life actually has to go with good health. So I want to be in as good health for as long as possible to enjoy life. So good mental health, good physical health, that's part of the long life. And then security is usually a thing that comes up, particularly financial security. And some of the research says that it's not actually having more money that makes us happy or gives us a better life. It's just knowing what we've got and feeling comfortable, secure. And then I guess lots of people say to me, well, I want a good quality of life. And when you probe that and break it down, it's words like happiness, contentment, fulfillment, all those sort of words come out when people try to describe what they mean by quality of life, a good quality of life. So the good news is that I can give you is you actually don't need to worry about all of those, because if you concentrate on just one of those elements, the others will increase as well. So we know there's some connection about how to have that good life going forward. And the one that we really need to concentrate on and think about is that final one, good quality of life. And I'm going to specifically talk about happiness for a little while. So my next question on the next slide is, what is happiness? How do you measure whether you're happy or not? And most people, when asked that question, would do a bit of a snapshot. So we say, oh, how happy are you with your life just now? Oh, I've got a great life, I'm happy. Or I'm just a little bit not comfortable. So we take that snapshot and then it starts to lead into what we have. Well, why? My life's okay at the minute. I've got a nice house, I've got a lovely family, things are going well at work. So it's about what we have. That then sometimes leads to a conversation of, if I want to be happier, it'll be when I acquire something or when something happens. So when I finally finish work, I'll be happier. When the kids are settled and are living their own lives, I'll be happier. When we move house to the coast. So a lot of people, when they start talking to me, say, this is what I'm looking for. When I do this, I'll be happier. But actually, I want to share with you what it really means, because quite often that's a bit disappointing. When you actually get to that point, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Some of you may have retired already and sort of had that feeling that thought it was going to be amazing and lovely. And the initial happiness wears off because it's not enough. A bit like buying a new car. The smell of a new car is amazing. I love my cars. Great feeling for about a month. And I've promised myself I'm never going to eat my sandwiches in the new car. And then slowly I creep back into actually it's just a car and I just get in and drive it. So unless I feel brilliant every time I get in that car, every single day and every single journey, it's really a short-lived happiness that I've bought myself. So what is happiness really? And this is our next slide. So it might surprise you that it's only been, sorry Jonathan, it's the one before. Yeah, it's only been in the last 20 years that people have started to study happiness. So prior to that, psychologists like Freud studied what made people either crazy and mad or unhappy, ill health. But 20 years ago, some of these guys here that you see these books started to say, well, let's look at what makes people positively, mentally well, what's happiness. And two important things have come out for our work together. First of all is that happiness is an emotion. It's a state of mind, it's how you feel. So you can only measure it by checking in almost hour by hour. How happy am I at this moment? And then that must be linked to what am I doing at the moment that's making me have this feeling of happiness. So when I talk about happiness, it's what are you doing? How are you spending your time? And how does that make you feel? And are you feeling happy as you go through your daily life, your week, your month? And then the second thing they discovered was that actually we usually think of happiness as fun and pleasure, but we can't all be smiling and laughing all day long. It'd be quite ridiculous if everybody went round being happy, laughing, smiling. We would think you were crazy. So the second thing that the psychologist discovered was that happiness is actually as much about having a sense of purpose, feeling purposeful, as being happy and smiley and having fun. So happiness is a combination of a sense of pleasure and purpose, and we need to check in and think about how we're spending our time. That's why that big question is really important to life planning. How are you going to find ways of spending your time that give you a sense of purpose and a sense of pleasure? So let's turn to our second big question. There's our pleasure and purpose. Let's go to the next big question, which is how long is life? So we don't like to think about this, but how long are you planning for? How long do you think you will live and how long is life? Because that's quite important to the way in which we think about our next steps. So just a quick poll here or something for you to think about. How long do you think you have left to live? What do you imagine your life expectancy to be? And it's a simple multiple choice question. You've got 4 options there. Just have a think about what really do you think you are planning for?
For those that are on computers, you should be able to select one of these on the right-hand side of your screen. I know some people already have. I'll publish the results in a second.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what we've got there. So if I could see your faces, I could probably see which way you're going with your answers, how you feel about getting old, how long you think you're going to live for.
There's a couple more people just selected now.
And what have we got roughly, Jonathan? Because I don't think I can see the results. So
It's just there's a few more people just clicking now, but it looks like overwhelmingly people are going for 86.
Okay, so majority are 86.
Yeah, I'll just close the poll now. You should be able to see the results on your screen now. Can you see those?
I'm not seeing them on mine.
Oh.
Yes, I can see them.
Oh, there you go. So we've got 10 people have said 86, nobody said 76, 3 people have said 90, and 1 has said 100.
I have the results now in front of me. Good. So we've got no pessimists among the audience today. And I should have said that this is obviously assuming that you don't catch any nasty virus, and this is normal average life expectancy in the UK. So 76 would have been, in 1950, the average life expectancy of a man aged 55. And if we go back a bit further than that, when the state pension was introduced, then at the beginning of the 1910, I think it was something like that, life expectancy was about 70. So the state pension was meant to be a very short period of time where the government would support a life of leisure. So that back in the 1950s, 76 probably would have been the answer. Then we get to 86. So the majority of you saying, yeah, 86. Well, today there's a 70. If you were 70 today, then on average your life expectancy is around 86. So we know that life expectancy has been increasing. It's increased 30 years in the 20th century, and it continues to increase. And I think this is why a lot of you perhaps are still stuck with the 86, because life expectancy hasn't plateaued. It continues to increase, despite obviously things that are happening at the moment, and that will adjust all of our figures. But in normal life, actually, the life expectancy of a woman age 55 today is 90. But for those of you who said 90, whether you're male or female, if you're male, it's a couple of years less average life expectancy for men at the moment. What can I say? Women are hardier. No, we don't have easier lives. We just cope better. So 90, yeah, is probably realistic. But if we look at that 100 figure and one of you, congratulations, has a life expectancy of 100. We actually know that that's far more than that 20% of all the people currently in the UK can expect to live to 100. There are so many people now being 100 that the Queen does not send you a telegram unless you ask for it. She can't cope with the demand. We know that children born today have a 1 in 3 chance of living to be 100. So the idea of a 100-year life is fast becoming a reality for us as a generation, but also for younger people. So that's the first message, is to really sort of readjust your thinking and just think that if you retired at 60, it might be that you're spending a third of your life in retirement. So that then makes you start to think about, if it's a third of my life, what am I going to do with that third? It's a long period of time to plan for. Probably too long for any human I know, even my husband, to play golf continually for 30 years. So if that's our life expectancy, does age really matter? Does it matter what age you are? Does age have to determine how you feel and what you do? This isn't a poll question, but just for a moment, just think about, how are you feeling about getting older? I wouldn't blame any of you or be surprised if many of you are a bit worried about getting older or are dreading it, feeling a little bit anxious, because we live in a world where ageism is everywhere. We do it to ourselves. We just have to look around the media for the way in which older people are portrayed. At the moment, obviously, older people are even more communicated across as being frail, being a burden on the NHS, a burden on younger people. The anti-aging business is lucrative. People encouraging us to try and stop the aging process. Well, we're all aging. We'll all have aged by an hour by the end of the seminar, hopefully in a positive way. So we're all getting older. Some of the ageism is very subtle, and just listen out for it when you say it to yourself or hear it. You know, that sort of comment of, oh, you're still skiing, are you? Oh, good for you. Those sort of phrases that suggest that you shouldn't be able to do things at a certain age, that you should be perhaps not still skiing when you're 75. So be aware of ageism and think about how it affects your thoughts. Because actually, for our generation, we're aging differently, and age has less relevance to what you choose to do. You don't need to live life according to your age. If we look at the next slide, you'll see 2 pictures. On that sort of left-hand side is a traditional life course where things happened generally because we reached a certain age. So it was expected that life would flow according to your age in a set sequence. Childhood, you go to school, you get a proper job, usually in the past a 9 to 5 full-time job. You get a proper job, you settle down, you find a partner, you get married, you buy a home, have the children, spend midlife working really hard, and look forward to this day when you retire and can have a life of leisure until the day you get your calling. So life lived in a very linear way. But I'm guessing, and I don't know any of you just yet, but certainly for me, I think my life has not been like that. It's a bit like that Morecambe and Wise sketch. I've done all those things, but perhaps not in the right order, and some of them I've not done at all. So my life has been a little bit more like the diagram on the right, which is a crazy paving, sort of a looping backwards and forwards. And why shouldn't it be? Because it's not my age that determines the things I choose to do. So we're reshaping the way in which we live our lives, and that doesn't have to stop because you reach a particular age. Most importantly, because what we're also reshaping, as well as reshaping our lives, look at the next slide, we are reshaping that word retirement. Jonathan, I think you've got us next slide. So we're reshaping what we consider to be retirement. And in my experience, that cliff edge, the traditional, my dad worked in a factory. On Friday, he retired at the age of 65. And on Monday, he had started golf lessons and started to enjoy a leisure life. Most people I come across now are thinking about working differently. You can continue working for as long as you like. There is no statutory retirement age. And obviously, if you're self-employed, you can continue to run your business for as long as you like. So people are working differently, more flexibly. Work becomes not just paid work, but unpaid voluntary work, meaningful voluntary work roles. And people are almost developing like a portfolio life. More importantly, I guess, there are no norms. So it means that there's nothing that you have to do or should do at a particular age. And that means, move to the next slide, that it is very much about finding your own path. So what's right for you? Not what other people are doing, not what you see friends or family, not that great advice that everybody's willing to give you, but what is it that you want and need to get the best life that you can? So no norms, puts more importance on really seeking through and working out what's right for you. So that takes us perhaps now to getting practical. I promised to share with you 3 steps. And these are the 3 steps to planning your future: reflect, explore, create. I just want to tell you a little bit about where those 3 steps come from. In my work, I've developed a program called the Time of Your Life program. And I wanted, when I designed that, to give people a practical roadmap with a real outcome. So how do I get from where I am now, thinking about what the next stage of my life looks like, to having a clear plan and a way forward that I can get on with and make change happen. So in the programme, each step is a set of self-reflective and exploratory exercises that I provide for you. And then there's a one-to-one session with me where I help you make sense of the learning that's come through those activities. So to support and encourage you to think more broadly, more deeply. Quite often I challenge people's thinking, give some feedback, reflection, and challenge people to just think a little bit differently. And finally, to motivate you to turn your learning into a so what. So what are you going to do with knowing what you now know as a result of those activities? So that's how the 3 steps would work in practice. But today I'm just going to outline the key questions and the key themes that come up at each stage. So the first step is reflect. And this is really, when I designed it, it was about making people pause, step back and get off the hamster wheel. So to stand back and look at their life. I suppose at the moment with COVID-19, the situation has made many of us actually get off that hamster wheel and slow down and stop. So having really forced that reflective period, the questions would be, first of all, how do you spend your time? So the question at the moment for me is, think about life before lockdown and how you spent your time. And for all the things that you spent time on over a typical 12-month period, say, how much were those things of value to you versus how much time you spent on them? You're spending a lot of time doing things that aren't really that valuable or important to you, and other things that are really valuable being squeezed into a small amount of time. That would be the first step. The second step is to look backwards. Sorry, Jonathan, I'm still there. So how have you lived your life so far? So looking backwards to say, well, how have I lived all of my life? Where are the high points, the low lights? What are the patterns and habits that I've developed as I've lived through my life? And the reason for doing that is because it allows you to think what you want to take forward and what you want to leave behind. So a couple of examples. I worked with a lady called Jane who retired from a very professional job and seemed to be very in control. But when she did this activity, she actually realised that most of the major decisions in her life had not actually been made by her, but had sort of been made for people around her. So she had to change jobs when her husband moved jobs and they moved house. She got promoted because her boss suggested it and arranged it for her. So this was the first time in retirement she realised that she was making a decision on her own for herself, and that seemed absolutely petrifying. And then the next time I met her, we'd moved to a situation of how exciting is that? So really important to understand where she'd come from. I'm currently working with a client who's quite worried about taking a risk with something he's contemplating. And when we look back, he actually realised that several times in his life, when some of the high points in his life had come about because he'd taken a risk. So he reminded him that he can take risks, they do work out, and actually they're not so scary. That's really important as we move forward to planning his future. So looking back is interesting. And obviously at the moment we've got that huge wealth of what have you learned from the last couple of months. And that leads us to a framework, the beginning of a framework to say, what do you want more of or less of in the next stage of life? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? What do you want more of or less of? So that's our first step. So the second step is explore. And in order to explore your options, it's really about starting with you. So start with yourself and let's get to know ourselves a bit better, probably as we've been doing in lockdown. And that first question there may sound a little bit odd, who's the real you? But it's there for a reason. Because in my experience, many of us, particularly when we've had professional careers, have different personas. We play parts. We play the business us. We play the other person. We're very good at putting the suit on and playing whatever part is required of us. And I'm finding that one of the outcomes of this situation is that the professional and the personal, those different personas are merging. It is a shame you can't see me because today I'm inviting you into my house. And that's a little bit odd. That people can see not just me, but my surroundings and get a real picture and get to know a different side of me. It's harder to play an act if you're inviting people into your home. So that sort of idea of multiple identities is worth questioning. Who's the real you? Some of you who may already be retired or had some time not working will understand that issue of identity. But if you haven't got a job title or an organisation to hide behind, you have to really think about, who am I? Because I'm not my job title. So spend a little bit of time thinking about who the real you is. Our second question, and I guess part of understanding who you really are, is to think about what you're good at. Now, it never ceases to surprise me that when I work with people who are in their 50s or their 60s, who've lived a long and very rich lives, have trouble articulating what their skills are. I'm not sure why that is. I think we're a little bit reserved as a nation. And I think some people we're just not used to talking about what we're good at. So when I work with people, I have a lovely pack of cards that you sift through that enables people to find a language to talk about what they're good at. And I also encourage them to take the pack of cards and go and get feedback from somebody else who knows them well. So you can start to get a sense of what am I good at and what skills do I enjoy using and how might I be able to use these skills differently if I'm not doing what I'm doing currently. If I'm not using these skills in a work setting, how else could I put them to good use for the benefit of the world around me? So we've got the real you, what are you good at? And then the next really important question is, what's your why? So remember we talked about having a sense of purpose and happiness being pleasure and purpose. This question comes directly back to that. What is it that gives you a sense of purpose? And that's a very personal question because it's about your personality. What sort of person are you and what motivates and drives you to do things? Where do you get your sense of satisfaction from? And I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a story to try and illustrate that. But it's not about what we do, but why. And here is me. So although you can't see me, I am the person in the purple jacket there. And this is me, my husband, and my two best friends on a cycle trip. The last October, we cycled about 120 miles from the west coast of Scotland through to Dunbar on the John Muir Way. So we all did the same thing. But what made it special for us? Why did we decide to do the trip? And why did we all agree it was a fantastic week? Well, very different reasons. So I originally was going to walk this trail with my husband in a slow, leisurely pace. But then my friend Jane, who is very much motivated by targets and achieving things, she's a marathon runner, she's a triathlete, really suggested to us, well, come on, we could do it faster. We could be more stretching. You could push your envelope, Jude, if you were to do this bike ride. So she set the ambitious target that we should cycle. Great. And that's what she enjoyed, was seeing me and all of us achieve the route in the time and actually pushing our envelopes, as she calls it. For me, I wanted to do that, but I didn't really care too much if I didn't finish. The motivation for me was the opportunity to spend a week with 4 people who I love dearly. But I also saw the opportunity, because of where we were going, to build in some more connections with people. So we had other supporters. We stayed with friends. We met people for lunch to give us a little bit of motivation. So I had a little social injection every day to make it really special for me. So what about Sandy, my husband? He actually gets his sense of purpose from planning things and getting the process right. So he volunteered to take on the planning of the whole trip. And as we cycled along the trip, he was concerned and interested to know that that's what said, So just made it really special for him to see that a plan could come to action, and obviously make sure all the details were right, and also to make sure we were looked after. And then Ian. Ian's motivation, Ian's a problem solver. He's a fixer. He makes things, repairs things, likes to know how things work, and he likes a good problem. So really interesting that the one person who had the puncture on the trip was Ian. But one day he had a puncture, fairly simple mechanical problem for him to solve, but not when he realised that his spare inner tube was also punctured. So then it became a really complex problem. How, when we're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Highlands of Scotland, were we going to find someone who'd got an inner tube? So I won't tell you the whole story, but both Ian and I had a fantastic day, because it involved meeting an interesting character in a rundown garage. He helped us. I got my people connection. Ian was solving problems all over the place. But you can imagine that the person motivated by achieving the target was furious, because we were held back by several hours on the plan. And my husband, who enjoys planning, was absolutely aghast that somebody could have not checked their equipment 3 times over before starting on the journey. So I tell you that story to try and just get across that we did the same thing, but it wasn't what we were doing, it was why we were doing it. We're going again, hopefully in October, we're going again on another trip, the Way of the Roses, but we're all doing it for those different reasons. So hopefully that just makes a bit of sense. In the program, and when I work with people, I actually use a professional online personality profile. So that helps you very quickly and very easily get these insights into what motivates you. And then we can look for examples from your life to back that up. So the online personality profile gives an awful lot of detail. It helps us look at how we respond when things go wrong for us, as well as when we're in a happy place. And it also helps us look at relationships. When I work with couples, it's quite interesting here that when you look at what motivates the 2 individuals, it's working out how they make that work. So how do I and Sandy make it work when he's quite introverted, he likes planning, he likes process, I like connecting with people, and I like the excitement of new things and different things. So things not going to plan is good for me, but awful for Sandy. So how do we make that work? So the personality profile enables me to help you to see that quite easily. So that's our second step, which means that when we're really that explore step is about who is the real you, what is it that you're good at, what's your why, and that culminates then in what do you need to be your best self? What do you want and need in your life to be able to feel and be your best self? That's step 2. Step 3, the thing that's really moving us forward, is to try and, like the little diagram there, to put the pieces of the jigsaw together. And I'm going to tell you again a little bit of story about my own life, because this is how it worked for me and what led me to design Time of Your Life. And it just shows you how what I mean by putting the jigsaw pieces together. So my story was about 5 years ago when I hit 50. I had that little midlife crisis. Crikey, how did I get to be this old, and what am I going to do with the rest of my life? This can't be all there is to life. My dad had died, my best friend died. I had a real moment of, what is it all about? I was running a corporate management training company, so I was delivering management, leadership training, lots of work around diversity, and it was okay, but it wasn't exciting me anymore in the way it used to. So I decided, right, that's it, we're stopping everything. My husband had finished his corporate work. We're going to move to Scotland, live the dream, and live by the coast. And after a year or so house hunting in Scotland, something was niggling me all the time and I couldn't work out what it was. So I stepped back and reflected, and I did my self-awareness bit. And I then arrived at the pieces of the jigsaw that I know I needed to have to be my best self and have that happy, healthy life. So I thought about my skills that I enjoy using, connecting with people, questioning, listening. I'm very curious, so I like to find out about things and make sense of stuff. I like learning about people, situations, about theories. I like learning. I thought about what I was passionate about, what got me angry. I get really angry when I see ageism. I feel that my generation have to change the way that we think about age and live our lives well. So I knew I wanted to do something that would further that cause, as it were. But I also love history. I love social history, particularly history about people. I love the outdoors, my cycling, my walking. So keeping fit for me has to be outdoors, not in a gym. And I have some close family and friends for whom those connections are really important. And my sense of purpose comes from helping people help themselves, helping people learn, valuing independence and the right to choose freely for yourself. So putting all that together, I then thought, okay, what am I going to do with my life that will give me a number of activities where I use all of those aspects of me? And that's really how I invented my new work. So I stopped doing what I was doing. My business, Kingswood Consulting, has been put to bed. I've created new work, which is Time of Your Life. So I work differently. I work part-time. It's a different business. I'm doing different things, but I'm using my skill set and my knowledge in a different way. I haven't thrown everything out with the bathwater. I'm building in more cycling and walking trips, long distance paths and so on. We didn't move house. We did move house. Sorry, we moved house to a new house, but not very far away. So it was about the space and how we use it rather than where we were. And then I found my perfect volunteering role. So I'm actually a castle engager at Barnard Castle, Bishop Auckland Castle. Sorry. So recently I've become what I'd always wanted to be was a sort of a guide at Bishop Auckland Castle. But the history of the castle is about the bishop, so particularly interesting for me. So I've arrived at Portfolio Life. It's not fixed. Things change all the time. But I know I now have a framework that I can check in with now and again to see how happy I really am. So am I doing the things that I said I wanted to and needed to do? Am I incorporating all of the pieces of the jigsaw? And I also have a really easy way to evaluate new opportunities. If somebody says, this is going on, would you like to get involved in this? Or how about we do that? I can look back at how well that matches to my portfolio, and it makes it easier to say no. No, I'm sorry, but that's really not for me. It's not something I would enjoy, not something I get a sense of purpose from. And I also feel okay about letting go. So if something drops off my jigsaw, if I lose a piece, I know that I just need to find something else to replace it with that does a similar thing. So a really good example is I've not been able to go to Bishop Auckland Castle for 2 months, missing it dearly, but I've replaced that learning about history and learning about people's history by getting stuck into my family tree again. So I've just replaced. So hopefully that helps you see how that stage of bringing it all together is really based on the 2 steps previously. It's the prior work that enables you to create the future going forward. So there's three simple steps there: reflect, explore, create. It does take time, it does require some commitment, but the sort of benefits that people have said to me they get by going through the process are these, some of these quotes here that you see. So really having that positive feeling that it's about new beginnings, it's not an ending. It's okay to move on and to have closure and look at new beginnings. Finding a way of being and not just following what I thought I should do. Having confidence to be yourself. One of my first clients said to me, "You've given me permission to be me. I understand through the personality profile that I am green. The profile works on colours. I know now that I'm green. I've always known I was green, but you've given me the confidence and freedom to just be me. It's okay to be me." And then that focus, the focus, which means you can embrace change, come in rather than be fearful. And I think particularly at this time, if you're feeling a little bit fearful about the future after lockdown, it's really having and knowing that you can give that a positive focus and think about change in a positive way. So those are the 3 steps. I hope that's really helped you to understand how you might move forward and how I work. I work with individuals, I work with couples, and also with small groups of people. And I've explained how those 3 steps work. And they're flexed in a way that suits your needs. So if you would like to talk to me, I offer a free consultation. So to find out more about where you're at and what you'd like to achieve and see how I can help you. So if you want to do that, you can contact me directly. My details are on the screen there. You can email me, judith@timeofyourlife.me.uk, or just give me a call on that phone number. Or if you prefer, or if you forget those details, then just contact your advisor at Prismatic, and I'm sure they will hook us together and put us in touch. So again, a free consultation. If I can help you just think through where you're at, please give me a shout. It'd be lovely to chat to you and perhaps to see you too. I'm currently working on Zoom and any sort of online platform, so you would be able to have a video call with me and to talk that through. So thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate you taking some time on such a sunny afternoon. And I'm going to hand back to Jonathan or Graham, and just to see if there are any questions that have come through that we can answer.
Thanks for that, Judith. If anyone has any questions for Judith, now's your chance. Or if you'd like to ask her personally in private, feel free to contact Judith with the details on the screen or the Prismatic Wealth Advisor. Is there any questions? I'll take that as a no. Thanks for your time today, for everyone dialing in. We've recorded this video, so we will be able to, we'll hopefully put a copy of this on our website, and we'll also send a copy of the slides around as well, so you have Judith's contact details should you want to contact her. Graham, if I'd like to hand over to you if you just want to wrap things up.
Yeah, one question, Judith, that might be worth answering is what these sessions usually entail if a couple come along, and what sort of time commitments is normal if there is a normal couple.
Yeah, sure. That there's no normal couple. There's no normal person. I can guarantee that. Everybody is totally unique. But in terms of the session and what I offer, then yes, each of the 3 steps has a session with me, as I mentioned, and they are typically quite long sessions. So with an individual, that could be 2 to 3 hours. At the moment, working virtually, I'm finding that we break that up. So it's difficult to concentrate on the screen. So it might be that instead of 2 to 3 hour sessions, there are more 1.5 hour sessions. So we'll flex that. But I offer really 9 hours coaching as part of the package. If it's couples, then that isn't that all those sessions are together, because it's really important that I work with each individual to create their life plan. But that each time we do that, there is then a joint session where I invite the 2 people to share with each other what they've learned and what they've discussed with me. So it's like a parallel process, that if a couple want to work together, we work individually and then a joint session together. And that can be really helpful in doing it at the same time to arrive at the same endpoint. Obviously, if it's a workshop, and I do run workshops, I'm currently looking at how to do an online workshop, then it's not quite such a personal experience, but you're sharing and learning with a group of other people. So typically groups of 6 to 12 people would be the maximum that I would work with.
That's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Happy to take questions, or I'm happy to take an email or a phone call if you would rather ask questions on a one-to-one.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone. Has everyone gone, Jonathan?
No, people are just leaving now. I'm just
Okay.
saving the recording.